everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer this week. This is going to be the astro weather for November 17th through the 23rd, 2024. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm excited to talk to you guys about the upcoming transits for the week. And obviously the main headline is Pluto is returning to the sign of Aquarius. We're going to talk about what that means for the 12 rising signs, so stay tuned to the end and give you guys a little bit of a recap of what we've been kind of dealing with and looking at with this transit really since last year. Now, if you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, make sure you click the bell button below, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and leave me a comment. Let me know, where is Pluto transiting in your chart, and are you going to be experiencing a very significant Pluto transit? I would like to hear from you guys, maybe give you some feedback, so make sure you comment down below. And thank you guys so much for liking and sharing. I appreciate it. Any interaction with the channel helps the channel grow. And as many of you guys know, we are well on our way to almost hitting 40,000 subscribers. So please do share. All right, so this week, obviously that's a big transit that we're going to be experiencing, but there's some other things that are kind of going on this week too. So we're going to see some insane news cycles this week. You guys are going to see some really crazy, larger than life type of things that are kind of coming out. Some of it has already started happening. I saw some people sent me some videos and articles on the UFO exposure. I think that's part of these transits, but I think there's going to be some more. So watch for these really big news cycles. With the mutable madness that's going on, we're going to see Mercury getting ready to turn retrograde. Mercury is making some aspects still to Jupiter actually today on Sunday. And it's still in the midst of some of those squares with Saturn. So we're going to be kind of seeing some larger than life news, unexpected things that are kind of coming out of nowhere, things that have been withheld, or information that was at one point kind of redacted now becoming visible. And it's going to be pretty colorful. So with that being said, we are getting ready to go into the Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. We're actually going to be starting that next week. So just so you guys know, Mercury is slowing down. So you're going to start really feeling the effects of the Mercury retrograde this week. We are also experiencing a very kind of emotional, very tapped in and inspiring Sun in Scorpio trine Neptune in Pisces. Great day to maybe practice some divination, some meditation, to reflect a little bit, to be a little bit more in tune with what's going on with ourselves emotionally, and also a great time for healing or just kind of feeling a little bit more romantic or a little bit more sensitive. So that's going to be a nice transit that we're going to see before the sun moves into Sagittarius and we start Sagittarius season. So that's going to be happening this week as well. And then finally, we are also seeing Pluto return to the sign of Aquarius. This time he's planning on staying a while. So if you guys think back to what's been happening since January of this year, January 2024 through September 2024, we saw Pluto in Aquarius briefly, and it was kind of moving into that sign, hung out at 0 degrees, and then retrograded back. So think back to what you've been experiencing. You know, what changes, what transformations have been taking place, especially in the area of your chart that deals with Aquarius. Obviously, Pluto is kind of like the big bad wolf in astrology. Very slow moving planet. These transits take a long period of time to kind of work through their cycles that they're making aspects in your chart. But essentially, Pluto is all about rebirth. It's about endings and beginnings. So moving through the sign of Aquarius, collectively, it's going to have a lot of themes on our future, but it might be making some personal aspects in your chart. So pay close attention if you have anything about 0 to 3 degrees of Aquarius, as you'll be under a Pluto transit. As well as my Scorpio and Scorpio risings. For you guys, you're ruled by Pluto, not just Mars. So be mindful that the Pluto transit and the ingress is pretty significant for you as well. Now, Pluto in astrology, just in a nutshell, this is a planet that is about transformation and regeneration. Okay, so think about like the phoenix. Pluto represents, you know, profound change and anything revolving around death and rebirth. It can be both literal or in like a metaphorical sense. It indicates areas of our life where we might experience intense like pain or transformation. And it's often through crisis that leads to personal growth or rebirth. So usually a Pluto transit kicks off with something like that, and then we end up going through some kind of profound shift. Now, Pluto always deals with power and control. It deals with the themes of power dynamics, including how power is used or abused. And Pluto can show where you might be having power struggles in your own life, either with yourself or with other people. It could also be for control over situations or being controlled by them. So it's something to kind of think about, is what has control over you, right? Or what has power over you. But in the sign of Aquarius, it could be about the control of the masses, control for the future, right? That's kind of the topics and the themes that kind of come up with this particular ingress. Now, I have found that with Pluto transits, there always is this kind of like subconscious or shadow self aspect that comes out. And I think a lot of that is because Pluto is connected with like the deep psychological like underworld, and it represents our subconscious mind, things that are kind of like hidden. It could mean hidden motivations and things that are kind of darker or more repressed, especially those parts of ourselves that we don't want to deal with, right? Like the shadow self. So for many of us, it could be uncovering these hidden aspects to achieve healing and wholeness and becoming aware of it. So when Pluto goes into a new sign, there is this like awareness or this shock or surprise that, maybe something has been kind of hanging around and like now we actually have to deal with it. Yes, with Pluto transits, we do see themes revolving around obsession and compulsion because Pluto's influence is very strong. So it can manifest as like obsessive behavior or compulsion for some people, but it might also be about fixating on certain interests or desires. So this can be, both destructive or positive depending on the aspects that it's making in your chart. And it's really about like these profound insights that can come from these moments of awareness where we're overdoing something, or we won't let go of something, or we're deathly afraid of something. Like it can be in excess with Pluto transits. But I do know that the kind of overarching theme of Pluto transits just in general, or like the archetype of Pluto, is always about destruction and renewal. Just as the mythic Pluto or Hades ruled the underworld, the astrological Pluto really governs aspects of life that must be destroyed to make way for new growth. So this includes old systems in society or outdated personal beliefs, just in a nutshell with Aquarius, but it could be something very different for you depending on where you're having this Pluto transit in your chart. I do think that, always the topic of psychology and healing comes up with Pluto. And it can be associated with therapy, deep psychological work, or the healing that comes from confronting and also integrating one's shadow. Many times these are things that we do when we're going through some kind of therapy or kind of healing process. So for many of us, I think we're going to see Pluto in Aquarius is like this is becoming something that's more readily available. It's becoming something that is encouraged. We might see many more people kind of participating in some of these healing techniques. On a collective level also, Pluto really deals with like evolution. Okay, so I do think that this Pluto transit, especially in Aquarius, could signify that there are evolutionary leaps that are taking place right now. And that some of the things that are happening may be historical and maybe even revolutionary. These changes are likely to be happening within our society because it's all about the evolution of consciousness, as Aquarius is an air sign, and it is about that higher kind of perspective and vantage point. Now, we also see themes revolving around sexuality, sexual intimacy, when we're looking at Pluto transits, because this is a planet that is associated with deep transformation and merging. So Pluto relates to sexuality, and in particular, it's more kind of profound, or it's about the transformative aspects of our sexuality and our sexual nature. So it can be about power dynamics in relationships and deep bonds that are formed through shared experiences or crises that we have with others. In general, though, I think about Pluto and Aquarius as like the collective becoming more aware of like our crisis and like issues revolving around sexuality or sexual identity, or even, issues revolving around sexual abuse. I think that that's kind of coming into light more so with Pluto and Aquarius. And this may not be on a personal level, but it can be that the masses are becoming aware that there have been some of these themes kind of going on for some time. And now it's like making like airwaves, because Aquarius is about kind of tapping into what's going on collectively. And then obviously Pluto does also deal with wealth. It also deals with, banking or loans or inheritance matters. So because Pluto rules over these topics, we can find that this is going to be like a really hot topic for some people. But other things as well. I think of like collective resources and like hidden or underground economies that are kind of coming into light, things that might be parallel economies as well. We've seen, the rise of like cryptocurrencies throughout this transit. I attribute that to some of that because of Uranus and Taurus as well. But I think that this is going to be about learning that it's not just about material wealth, but what we inherit psychologically or karmically from our ancestors or our past lives. how we can encourage everybody to really change and transform their relationship with power, wealth, and resources, so that way we can actually find ways to benefit everybody. We can provide resources for everyone. And usually as you're seeing a Pluto transit, especially as it's leaving one sign and going into another, it's really wrapping up the themes of where it's been. Capricorn, which is power and control. Now it's going into Aquarius, which is going to be more about these collective powers. I think of like groups of people, panels, people who are coming together to be able to support the masses. And we're moving away from like this old kind of system to something that's going to be new, and it's going to be about kind of including or taking everyone into consideration. I think with Pluto just going back into Aquarius, I just think about what has happened over this last year. And so it's going to be personal for everybody. Like I said, depending on where it is in your chart. It won't be until the 19th that Pluto enters into Aquarius, but it will stay there until January of 2044. So it's going to be roughly about, 20 years of Pluto being in this sign. Now, like I said, Pluto in Aquarius is an air sign. So Aquarius is about innovation, community, technology, and the collective consciousness. So Pluto going into the sign is going to be much more about like this forward-thinking nature and finding a way to create like profound transformation. And that can be for, the masses, and that can also be our personal transformations that we're going through as well. Collectively, though, I do see this being about technological advancements. I do expect there to be a continuation of significant developments in technology. I think of like AI, space exploration, blockchain, potentially just reshaping how we live, how we work, and how we interact. We're going to see more of that. Aquarius is also connected to the internet. So I think there's going to be major changes revolving around the internet and how we connect. But also I think of like major societal reforms. So we could find that there are major movements advocating for social equality, freedom, and also humanitarian causes, as Pluto creates this power, this kind of like this pressure that will build into where we start seeing movements of people who are kind of pushing for these changes. There's always themes of power dynamics with Pluto. It doesn't matter what sign it's in. So I definitely feel like this is showing us where there's going to be some pretty dramatic shifts in power structure. There's always a focus, I think, with Pluto and Aquarius to kind of break away from the system, right? To kind of be unique and individual and go its own way. So I have foreseen that a lot of this is going to be about decentralization. And it can be technology, based. It can be things like blockchain or even like grassroots movements that are kind of coming up that is allowing us to focus away from having too much power in one centralized kind of space, and finding ways to be able to kind of create group dynamics or a way for everybody to kind of be involved and have their fair share of having a say in how things are going. Now, personally, I feel like because this is a sign that's so much about the collective, it might be about how individuals are responding to the collective changes. So individuals might go through a deep self-discovery period, focusing on authenticity, personal freedom, really embracing, their goals or their dreams. Certainly, I have experienced Pluto and Aquarius. The change happens a lot more quickly than it did in Capricorn. Capricorn is slow, it's rigid, right? It takes forever to get there. And it almost seems like it does not want to, erode or rot or give way to something new. So when we get into Aquarius, we break free, and it almost seems like everything is a little bit more abstract and kind of fragmented. It's not so kind of collected as we would see in Capricorn. So it takes time to realize where we're going and kind of get the bigger picture, but I feel like the change comes much more quickly. But it does seem sometimes overwhelming, as Uranus is associated with Aquarius, so it can mean that it's kind of happening in these unexpected waves that kind of come out of nowhere that kind of push for some kind of freedom. Now, I do anticipate there's going to be a lot more community engagement. I think that this push towards valuing community and collective efforts over individualism is definitely going to be a theme. So we're going to see a lot of people working together and kind of coming together, which I foresee as being a positive thing. Some people say that Pluto and Aquarius can definitely, create some like civil unrest. I don't doubt that can happen intermittently throughout this period, but really, I think that, with Pluto going into Aquarius, and then watching a Mars retrograde that's going to happen December of 24 to spring of 25, that certainly does bring up some more intense kind of themes revolving around Pluto and Aquarius, where there can be this tug of war and this back and forth between kind of like single, control or single leadership versus, what's going to be going on with like new kind of movements and new agendas and stuff that's going to be providing freedom for everyone. That it may kind of go off with a bit of a bang before we finally kind of see that wrap up in the spring and things calm down. Now, obviously, Pluto in Aquarius, I think, is also known for innovation, right? But also disruption. So there is sometimes this kind of breakdown of outdated systems for new and more like updated ones, modern systems, things that are also going to be more efficient, things that are going to happen and kind of move much more quickly. We do see lots of themes revolving around human rights and equality. So I anticipate we're going to hear more on the topic of civil rights, equality across various dimensions, and also the empowerment of marginalized groups. That is going to be a theme. We're going to be hearing more about that with Pluto in the sign. Intellectual and scientific, kind of breakthroughs is something else that I had on my notes in science, particularly in fields like quantum computing and biotechnology. These are the topics that I think are going to kind of be major headlines over the next couple of years with this ingress. And I also fully anticipate that there's going to be some sense of like rebellion against authority because this is about challenging traditional power structures as it's coming out of Capricorn, potentially leading to societal upheavals or revolutions. So history repeats itself. We do see that as, planets kind of cycle through signs, we, as astrologers, we kind of observe what some of the patterns were during those time periods. And a Pluto cycle is, 200 and every so many years. So we have not experienced a full Pluto cycle in our lifetime. But if we go back and we look at the last time that Pluto was entering into Aquarius, that was 1777 to 1798. So that was as the United States was coming out of their revolution. We sought independence basically from Britain. And then just after that, Pluto goes into Aquarius. And it was like this brand new kind of world where, we had freedom from that part of the world. And we were having to learn how to kind of like build what would ultimately be our government. And so it's kind of crazy that the last time we had this Pluto transit in Aquarius, it coincided with the US Revolution. But it wasn't just the United States. We had the French Revolution, which was a very bloody period, and also the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, which ultimately led to a lot of the the procedures, a lot of the developments, I guess I should say, in the modern era that we have now. So these periods were marked by significant shifts also in governance and societal structures, and obviously the onset of the modern age. So these are all kind of Aquarius topics. So we will probably see some similarities that are going to be happening with this go round. And it's unusual because in the next year or two, Saturn and Neptune going into Aries will aspect that. So that's also going to be positively kind of supporting these changes, especially on a personal level, how individuals are responding to these changes. And Uranus will go into Gemini next year and it will trine Pluto. And so this is going to be about a big technological shift that's kind of happening as well. I think to embrace this transit, is just about staying informed and being adaptable. I think about Pluto being kind of a fixed energy in its own right, and then it goes into a fixed sign. So embrace change by staying educated on technology and societal shifts. Obviously, it's going to seem a little bit extreme over the next year because we're going to have Pluto at 0 degrees intermittently several times. And so when a planet is at 0 degrees, it's the most potent form of that particular sign. So we're going to see a lot of kind of revolutionary things and people kind of getting to a breaking point and like something, kind of significantly changing. I do think that it's important to engage in community and participate or start initiatives that promote equality and community welfare. And that can mean you're getting involved in a local group. Maybe you're joining a group, or you're starting one online. Maybe you're looking to kind of collaborate and connect with other people. These are important because in the future, I think really what's going to be the next major currency is not necessarily money, but it's going to be who you know, who you're friends with, what community you belong to, how your peers perceive you, and your involvement when it comes to community is going to be considered something that's very important. Watch for opportunities for personal growth. We will see that there's going to be lots of change, especially if you have any personal planets around that 0 to 3 degrees of Aquarius or the fixed signs. But I would use this time for introspection and like consciously realizing that, hey, Pluto's direct. It's time to let go of old patterns that no longer serve us. It might be scary. Change is scary, but it's necessary. and obviously embrace, you know, being an individual within the collective. I think Pluto in Aquarius is about challenging the narrative that we have to either kind of stand out and be completely different, or we have to go along with the crowd. I think this transit's encouraging group dynamics, but it's also about within the group maintaining your own sense of individuality and not losing that kind of touch with your own kind of inner persona. So we'll be doing more videos on this. There's already a couple videos on Pluto and Aquarius, and we do touch on this also in the horoscopes this month. So if you guys want more information, check that out. All right, so we're going to start first with November 17th today, Sunday. So happy Sunday to all of my Sunday crew. I hope you guys are well. This is the day that I told you about, that there is going to be some really big news going on out in the world. It's kind of cooking up on Saturday going into Sunday. And that's because you guys wake up in the morning and the moon is in Gemini. So it's chatty, it's communicative, it wants to run around, it wants to get things done. It is now moved out of the square of Saturn. So if you were feeling a little delayed or sluggish or finding it difficult to communicate on Saturday night, we're moving away from that now. And usually the moon Jupiter is kind of like jolly, happy, you know, it's kind of like fun. And there's definitely room for kind of short distance travel, communicating, learning, sharing. And it's generally, we're in a good mood. So this conjunction can be about overdoing it, becoming overly emotional, emotions becoming kind of blown out of proportion. And it's going to oppose Mercury. Okay, so if you guys have been following along, I talk about why this impending Mercury retrograde is so explosive, is because we have Mercury in a Jupiter sign, we have Jupiter in a Mercurial sign, we got mutual reception, both are in their fall. So there is already a tendency to overdo things, but then when they oppose each other, yeah, it gets bigger. So there's this emphasis on wanting to communicate and connect, wanting to learn, but the moon in opposition to Mercury is like, it's hard to remove our emotions from what we're talking about, learning or sharing. Like there is this sense of having to like kind of feel like we're being pulled in both directions, and like maybe trying to be more focused on expressing the ideas and getting the point across without letting our emotions get involved. Or there can be this sense of being like, okay, this is too intellectual. Like I don't want to intellectualize things. Like this is how I'm feeling, and kind of feeling like we're being pulled in different directions. At the same time, Mercury is also opposing Jupiter. So this makes information and news seem much bigger. Obviously, Sagittarius is the courts, it's the legal system. Jupiter is going to be about laws and legislation. It's also going to be about media. And the opposition that's happening is at 18 degrees. Okay, so I just want to read to you guys 18 degrees. And even though it's not exact, it's still within a 6-degree square of Saturn. So it's almost like there's this big news about things that are coming out or things that are changing, and Saturn is now direct, and Saturn is like not happy or pleased about some of the news that's coming out. All right, so 18 degrees. This is always a Virgo degree. So it deals with things like in the workplace, colleagues, people who working conditions, work or employees or a job, things that are connected to health, fitness, healthcare, general practitioner, anything revolving around medical cures, prescriptions, macrobiotics, service industry, customers, clients, tenants, subtenants, vet science, things that we analyze, step parents, clothes, ants, stomachs, honey, or honeybees. But I find it very interesting that RFK Jr. gets selected to run, I think, what is it, HHS, for the like health, you know, the whole like health branch here in the United States, or he gets selected. And Mercury is opposing the moon and Jupiter. So this could represent people being like, oh my God, did you hear the news? And, you know, the impact that is having potentially in the future of like global business and global sales, right? Mercury within health and like health services. And then both of these are squaring Saturn. So it can be talking about how the news that's coming out is also like impacting, you know, global kind of businesses and collective businesses. Saturn's also at a 12. So I think that we might see like a further kind of like breakdown of, pharmaceutical companies, stocks. I think it could also be that this is going to be a huge discussion revolving around massive changes in regards to jobs and like layoffs. I think we're going to be hearing more about that. And that can be more on like a kind of federal employee level, but that can also be like within these particular industries. So things that are associated with health and like kind of like medical stuff. But yeah, today is going to be a big news day is what I'm anticipating. And it could have started on Saturday night. I don't know. I'm recording this before that. Saturday, Sunday, Monday to me seems like holy cow type of news that's going to be going on. That moon is also still square Saturn. So it's almost like there's stuff we want to talk about or we want to share, but we're like, wait, is it too soon? Is it the right time? Like, how does that sit with me? We're kind of like emotionally processing things before we decide that we want to communicate and share. Other than the holy cow news cycle, there can be some really significant weather events going on because this does deal with weather. So mutable squares can be about how weather is changing. So we're going to hear probably something significant about tornadoes. Tornadoes this week are going to be a big topic as, you know, we have Jupiter and the moon coming together. So this can be talking about air, how that's potentially impacting travel. And then the squares to Saturn can represent where there is forecasts and screens and things that are coming out where people are kind of talking about how this might be impacting things. And it can be cold fronts because Saturn is cold and dry. And then air kind of coming through with the moon Jupiter squares. So if you are listening to your news and if you live in an area where there is extreme weather, flooding, or potential tornadoes, as crazy as this sounds, pay attention because I think we're going to hear something like this over the next week with some of the aspects that are setting up. Watch the courts, any discussion revolving around courts, laws, legislation, things that are kind of being proposed. That's also going to be a really big theme while this Mercury opposition is setting up. Now, in the PM hours, we're going to see the moon come into a square with Neptune. So pretty much all day that moon's in Gemini. So after the opposition first thing in the morning, it kind of eases up a little bit, but then at night we catch a moon square Neptune. And this is where we're a little like more emotionally unsure or sensitive, or we don't know how to quite respond to things. I would just say, just be mindful of like any back and forth communication. If you get a phone call, if you get some information, somebody wants to share something with you or what have you, like it does seem to me that there's going to be a hard time communicating, understanding, or relating, or that situations can be blown out of proportion for first thing in the morning. And then by the PM hours, the moon square Neptune is like a little bit more emotionally sensitive and unsure if it wants to kind of connect and relate, and it may have some issues with vulnerability. Now this is going to take us into Monday the 18th. And we wake up in the morning, the moon's in Cancer, so it's at home here, right here. And when the moon's in Cancer, we're focusing more on like emotional stuff, home, family, domestic matters. There is like a sense of like reflecting a little bit more, taking a little bit more time to process things and kind of protecting what we value the most. And we're sensitive to some of that stuff. So the one big aspect that you're going to see, there's only like one or two, is that we're going to see the moon come into a square with the nodes at a 5. Okay. So the moon square the nodes means that there is some emotional things kind of on tap in the midday afternoon. It can be about reflecting on the past. It can be about our emotions, our home, our family. But there can be fateful things happening because planets square the nodes mean that we're kind of moving out of our past kind of habits and kind of reactions, moving more into the North Node Dharma and kind of direction. And what's interesting is that the moon going through the square to the nodes is at a 5. So it's going to be about matters of the heart, home, family, children related matters. And the moon is going to oppose Venus. Okay, so we're going to have a grand cardinal cross. So there's this feeling with like the moon square the nodes, like, okay, there's emotions coming up. How do I integrate them? And then when the moon opposes Venus, like wanting something or longing for something that feels like it's like out of reach. And I don't know about you guys, but like the last couple of days, like with Venus kind of square the north and the south node, it just seems like people are a little bit more cold or detached, having a hard time like relating. And there is like this feeling of people like prioritizing just working through emotions or working through their feelings. And so this might be a day where that kind of catches up with you if that's something that you have been kind of doing. Now, later in the day, we're going to see the sun come into a trine with Neptune. And this is in the PM hours. So after we're kind of doing the moon square the nodes, moon oppose the Venus transit, Then the sun trines Neptune. Okay, this is in the PM. So the sun in Scorpio highlighting change, emotion, transformation, regeneration, healing at 27. So this is a Gemini degree. So maybe we're communicating and talking about what we're releasing, what we're letting go, what no longer serves us, what we don't want to hold on to anymore, what's not working for us. Kind of helping us tap in and be like a little bit more emotional. So it's interesting that the moon square the nodes is trying to get us to do that and prioritize that. And then, you know, the Venus transit, which has been squaring the nodes, has been like kind of saying, if we are detached, we're not emotionally vulnerable, and we're like only focusing on productivity or work, this can kind of be the aftermath. So I guess essentially, you know, Monday is the day that you want to be more tapped into your emotions and be paying attention. And like if it's a time to let go of certain patterns where you're just working through emotions and like kind of compartmentalizing them, that you pay attention to what's kind of coming up for you emotionally and you make a different decision. You choose to be more in alignment with like taking action and listening to your emotions rather than just kind of like bulldozing through them. And that sun trine Neptune can be a great day for divination, especially because it's at a 27. So like divination, anything you do with your hands. So if you like read runes, or if you work with like a pendulum, or if you want to do some automatic writing or some channeling, or work with some tarot cards or something like that would be wonderful with that trine. And then this is going to take us into Tuesday, which is the 19th. And the sun is getting ready to move into Sag. It's not quite there yet. And the moon is still moving through Cancer. So what we're going to see first thing in the morning is the moon square Chiron. So this is about emotions, dealing with the past, you know, home and family, domestic related things, and like the impact that that might be having on a relationship with ourselves, 19 degrees, where we're kind of learning to let go of the past, heal the past, and like not carry the wounds with us, to not identify as being wounded, to try to kind of release and let things go. We're also going to see that the moon is going to start coming into a trine, both with the sun as well as Saturn. So moon trine Saturn kind of overnight, it's emotionally stabilizing. It's allowing us to heal and focus on kind of letting go of the past, while the moon now building into a trine with the sun is going to be about like this transition that we're having, tapping into our emotions, and like also, you know, being open to renewal, being open to regeneration, right? All right, so let's see, we're gonna keep going there. And then Pluto will return to Aquarius. So it's kind of cool that it happens on a day where like, okay, so it's gonna be around the PM hours. I'm Central Time, so it's gonna be around 3 o'clock Central. And then for Pacific, it's going to be around 1 p.m. Pacific, and then it's going to be around 4 p.m. Eastern. Obviously, I know we have people all over the world, but this is the day that Pluto returns back to Aquarius. For that to be happening while the sun is trine Neptune, and it's also, you know, moon trine the sun, it does make me feel like this is about releasing and letting something go. Definitely interesting aspects to be having on that particular day. While we're looking at Pluto and Aquarius, we look at what's going on with Saturn and what's going on with Uranus, because they both relate to Aquarius. And we've got the moon that's sextiling Uranus. So that's also saying like feeling our way into change. And then the moon is also coming out of a trine with Saturn. So not the worst aspects to be having for that Pluto ingress. Does something happen the day of the ingress? Yeah, we might see something like on a global level. But it doesn't necessarily mean that this is the day that you personally experience anything. And if you do, it's just kind of feeling your way into that and kind of embracing what you're letting go of. All right, so we've got this water trine that's brewing. It's going to kind of continue into the PM hours. It looks like overnight the moon will trine the sun, sextile Uranus. And that's a nice aspect since we had that new moon in Scorpio. So now this is kind of like where things are kind of filtering out, and we've seen this whole season has really been about change. This is now going to take us into Wednesday the 20th, and we're going to see the moon hit 29 degrees. Then it's going to come into Leo. So before it does in the morning, it'll trine Neptune and the sun. So it almost looks like Wednesday morning is quite emotional. I would say pay attention to your dreams Tuesday night, because you might wake up and you might see, or, you know, kind of feel like you got a message in a dream about the past, about a home or like a family situation. I mean, Water trines like this, we can be very sensitive, very emotional. We can be, you know, kind of really in our feelings. So be mindful that a lot of people, I think, are going to be kind of processing their emotions in their own way. Then we have a total vibe shift in the morning when that moon goes into Leo. So for many of you guys, you're still waking up. So you may wake up with the moon in Leo. If you're an early riser, I really recommend like water, going for a walk near water, meditation, soaking, taking a hot shower early in the morning, just to kind of process that water trine. But if you get up later in the day, you know, or in the morning, the moon's going to be in Leo. So it's already a little bit more action oriented and kind of daring and kind of spicy, to be honest with you, because the moon is in an opposition to Pluto. So this is about how individuals are responding to changes that's going on with like power and some kind of new shift when it comes to the future. And the moon will come into conjunction with Mars. So we're going to feel, on one hand, very emotionally passionate. We might be feeling a little bit more romantic, a little bit more daring, a little bit more creative. This is on the 20th, but it's going to trine the North Node. So whatever is happening, we feel like we're in alignment. Like whatever we're creating, whatever we're pursuing, like however we're feeling, how we're expressing ourselves, like this is what we're supposed to be doing, because Mars kind of talks a lot about that connection to the North Node and like finding our purpose. So with Mars and Leo, we are feeling more romantic. We want to go after what we want. We want to play. We want to dance. We want to design. We want to share. So this would be a wonderful kind of afternoon, kind of evening to get into those things. If that's something that you want to do, to be working on a creative project, to be hanging out with a romantic partner, to be painting, to be drawing, to be performing. If you have an outlet while the moon and Mars are in conjunction here, it's going to be a little bit easier to navigate. Otherwise, people can seem a little emotionally combative and kind of like heated and a little bit of like hot-headed, and they can be impatient. So be mindful that that's kind of in the air in the later afternoon on the 20th. Now, this is then going to take us into the 21st, which is going to be Thursday. And when we wake up, that moon is still in Leo. So we're still feeling all of those passionate, kind of spicy things. We are also seeing that when the moon is in Leo, we're paying attention to the sun. So, you know, if we look at like the 20th and the 21st, the sun has been making its, you know, it's trine to Neptune. So we've been more kind of dreamy and creative. But now that sun is about to change signs. It's about to go into Sagittarius. So we can feel like the criticalness or the need to kind of like, you know, process something or like finish something or get something going because the sun is at like a critical degree. It does look like that moon is going to keep moving. It will pick up a sextile to Jupiter in the PM hours. So we're feeling more likely to share, communicate, and learn, you know, what we love, or we're talking about what we're passionate about. And we also see that the moon is going to come into a trine with Chiron. So it's about healing some kind of wound within ourselves. Great day for art therapy, great day for doing inner child work, you know, creative self-expression, anything like that could be very therapeutic. And we'll finish the night with the moon coming into a trine with Mercury. So those of you guys who write, perform, share, anything like that, I think this can be a wonderful kind of creative time period for you. And that sun is now in Sagittarius. So Sagittarius season will begin on the 21st. Let's see. So then we've also got going into the 22nd. Moon in Leo still. It's just wrapping up. But we wake up first thing in the morning with the moon square Uranus. So some of us might feel like we're jolting awake, you know, or there's some kind of shock or surprise that's kind of going on that we don't see coming. Uranus and Taurus can be about financial systems. Moon can be about the market. So this is going to be a time that you want to watch what's going on in the morning with the market. There could be some shocks and surprises kind of going on here. And that's kind of in the sky anyway. I mean, if you guys are watching this on Sunday, we just had a full moon in Taurus. So some of that stuff can still be kind of happening over this next week, where we can be seeing some kind of complex situation revolving a growing concern or some kind of growing change with like financial structures, banking institutions, that kind of stuff. But the moon is going to come into a square with Uranus. So we can feel a little shocked, disabled, you know, we're having to kind of pivot. Things feel a little unexpected taking place. We've also got Venus, which is in a sextile to Saturn, which is nice because Venus is in a Saturn sign. So this basically means the more that we're prioritizing, loving, focusing, nurturing, opening up to long-term goals, commitments, responsibility, long-term planning, you know, some of our professional relationships, we can have a little bit more solid structure, security, dependability. This can also be interesting because it's at a 12. So it's about like kind of feeling our way into like, what is our purpose in relationships? What is our purpose when it comes to work and career? You know, how can we kind of learn to kind of listen and trust our inner voice? And generally with a Venus sextile Saturn, you know, relationships, money stuff, anything revolving business, there is a sense of stabilizing things and kind of having some support. So that's kind of a silver lining with some of the other stuff that's kind of going on out in the skies that day. We will see then the moon enter into, let's see, the moon's going to go into Virgo. And that's going to happen later in the day. And when that takes place, then we're really focusing on what's going on with Mercury. Okay, so moon in Virgo on the 22nd, on the 23rd, and the 24th is really a time period where we're getting organized, we're cleaning something up, we're focusing on our health, we want to be of service, we're trying to perfect things, we're kind of looking at the details of something. And emotionally, we feel the need to do that. So this can be very much about health and wellness and anything about kind of care. So we're looking at Mercury, and Mercury obviously is, you know, still in opposition to Jupiter. So we kind of feel like our mind's kind of blown with maybe conversations and information that's been coming through all week. And it's now starting to slow down. It's going to turn retrograde actually at 22 degrees next week, but it's moving very slow because it's approaching that degree which will station. And it's coming into a square with Neptune. So this can mean that there can be some confusion when it comes to communication, traveling, learning, kind of connecting with another person. And so things feel very blown out right now. It almost seems like things that have been blown out of proportion. And now we're like, well, what's next? Or, you know, we're still kind of trying to put the pieces together. I think that the other thing that I would watch for is that the moon is going to immediately come into a square with the sun. Okay, so this is also about changing circumstances where Virgo is more focused on the routine, the schedule, the habit. Sun and Sag is like the experience, where we're going, what we're, you know, where we're traveling to, you know, being in the moment. And so there can be this kind of back and forth between, you know, having some kind of routine or having a schedule or like focusing on order versus being like, we're just going to wing it, you know. And I would say a lot of the up and coming Mercury retrograde is like teaching us that we can't just wing it. We need to have we have to have our facts and our figures straight. We need to have a plan. So I would say really lean into this, you know, first quarter square, because it's basically saying before we get to where we need to go, what do we need to kind of create? What kind of structure, what kind of system, you know, what do we need to be cleaning up or organizing? Where do we need to kind of tend to something before we can do Sagittarius things, before we can travel, before we can go back to school, before we can learn something new, before we can publish a book? There is a sense of like needing some order or needing some support of some kind. So whenever the sun and the moon square, things feel kind of disjointed a little bit. So it might kind of feel like that's happening on the 22nd. So this is on Friday night. This is then going to take us into the 23rd, and that moon is still going to be in Virgo. Okay, so you're going to start to see this creep up into the square again, kind of similar to what you're experiencing on Sunday. Basically, you know, now Mercury is at the degree which it will station. It's at 22 degrees. So this is where it will retrograde. But the first thing that we're going to see is the moon's going to come into an opposition with Saturn. So that's going to be kind of happening on right around the early afternoon. And when the moon opposes Saturn, you know, moon in Virgo is like, how can I help? You know, how can I make it better? What do you need? How can we fix this? Like, and it's very practical and reliable. And Saturn in Pisces is now direct. So it can be about getting out of our own way and not self-sabotaging, or, you know, not hiding out from making the necessary changes, or, you know, not having a lack of faith. And this does make it more difficult to communicate, engage, and like share how we're feeling. And then that moon is going to keep moving. And it is going to, in the PM hours, oppose Saturn, and then it will trine Venus. Okay, so it's like you know, maybe we are deciding to kind of focus on our to-do list, getting things done, being productive, like not, you know, kind of self-isolating or self-sabotaging. And then the moon trine Venus is like, because we were productive, we got a lot of work done, or we were able to, you know, prepare everything for the week ahead, or we were able to kind of clean something up and, you know, kind of get more so prepared for, you know, long-term commitments in relationships or in professional things. So I actually really like on the 23rd, that moon trine Venus. I feel like this is a good evening, later in the evening, for, you know, doing some work preparation, for having a meeting, for going on a date. Moon and Virgo trine Venus in Capricorn does feel very practical, traditional, conservative. It doesn't feel like going out to a party or, you know, anything like that, but it does feel kind of very traditional, reserved, and, you know, doing something connected, but doing something meaningful or of value. And then it'll be in the middle of the night, but in the middle of the night, we are going to catch the moon square Jupiter and the moon coming into a square with Mercury. So if you are up really early tomorrow morning, maybe you'll catch a little bit of that wonkiness. Looks like it's going to square Jupiter in the early hours of Sunday the 24th. And then when we wake up, it's starting to come into a square with Mercury. So similar to what you guys are experiencing today on the 17th, where I was like, hey, moon is conjunct Jupiter. It's chatty, but there's an opposition to, you know, Mercury. So there's going to be kind of like a difficulty in communicating or making plans. And then it's all going to square Saturn and there's going to be some kind of setback or delay or some kind of challenge in communicating. I'm seeing some of the same stuff that's going to be happening here. In fact, I feel like the 24th is even more complicated because that moon's already come out of an opposition with Saturn where, you know, if there has been some heaviness, some blockages, some limits, you know, the moon's like, let's fix it. And it's trying to communicate and work through things with the square to Jupiter, but it almost feels like that makes the situation feel bigger. Or, you know, the conversations or the topic of work, health, productivity, these feel bigger. And then the moon is going to start coming into a square with Mercury. And notice that the dispositor of the moon is Mercury. So for the moon to square it and for Mercury to oppose Jupiter, it's saying the same thing. It's like, you know, we need to get things in order. We need a system. We need to be productive. And it almost seems like we're too emotionally or even, you know, intellectually stimulated or overstimulated, or we feel like there's just too much coming in that we're distracted and we can't get things done. So on Sunday, it almost feels like we have to stick to some kind of order or routine and not get swayed by, you know, changing circumstances or situations or like world events outside of ourselves. We have to stay to some kind of routine or some kind of program. And the more grounded we are, the easier it's going to be to kind of navigate that particular day. You will also notice that this is the day that we're going to have potentially more, you know, because of the mutable squares, topics revolving around changes with weather, how that's impacting travel. We're going to hear, you know, people who are also going to be talking a lot about communication challenges. There's going to be big emotions coming up with the square to Jupiter and people trying to kind of work through things. And I think a lot of it is going to be health and work related, just because we started the week with those 18s. We're ending the week with the moon in a sign that's about health and work, and it's squaring Jupiter and Mercury. I think a lot of people are going to be questioning about, you know, what's happening, you know, kind of going into the end of the year, where they stand. I think a lot of people are noticing changes in their workspace or with their employers or maybe with their schedules. I could see that a lot with the moon kind of going through Virgo, that people are kind of questioning like, okay, well, what's next? Like, what's going to be changing with, you know, my job or my career potentially in the next year? We will see that Mercury is now at 22 degrees. So this is the degree which it will station and retrograde back from. So be mindful that if you have anything around 23, 22, 21 degrees of Sag, you know, Mercury is going to be retrograding right through that. And you're going to be seeing that actually taking place next week. If you guys haven't already seen my Mercury retrograde video, I guess my Mercury and Sag video, so I take you guys all the way up to the Mercury retrograde point. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I talk about the aspects and why it's important. I also cover the Mercury retrograde in my horoscopes for November, but I am working on a video for you guys in this next week so we can talk about that retrograde. That's pretty much it. That's how the week kind of wraps up. Sun and Sag. We've got Pluto and Aquarius. We've got some mutable craziness. So kind of hang in there, you know, be flexible, be open to change. But before I finish, I do want to give you guys that heads up about where Pluto will be moving in Aquarius. So for this, I'm going to be using the whole sign system. It's easier for those of you guys who listen to my videos to use whole sign. So you can listen to your whole sign prediction for your rising sign, and then you can listen to your sun sign and your moon sign. If you want to use Placidus, you totally can. Just use or look at where about 0 degrees of Aquarius is. That's the house that you're going to want to be listening for. So that's the sign you're going to want to listen for. So you might have to listen to more than one. But this is definitely a topic we will continue to keep kind of talking about. And I meant to read to you guys, before I do this, I meant to read to you guys the Sabian symbol for 0 degrees of Aquarius, because this is an interesting one. So the first degree of Aquarius, which is what we read, is an old adobe mission. And the keyword is durability. The theme is spiritual foundations, and the symbol speaks to reassurance, sustainment, anchorage, and durability. The image of an old adobe mission alludes to the ability of everything rooted in spiritual to flourish and survive. In the 1800s, Spanish missionaries sprinkled the coast of California with missions in an attempt to establish religious roots to an adjunct to territorial expansion. These historic missions have survived to the present day. The emphasis on this symbol is on psychology as well as physical survival and on the necessity for maintaining meaningful ties to enduring values to sustain all men. At its highest, it represents spiritual integrity, strength of character, and endurance. Watch for apathy or indifference or inability to grasp the deeper meaning of things. Today, the accent is on sustainment. You may find it important to surround yourself with things or people to help you feel anchored and secure. Your greatest advantage lies in giving time and attention to the relationships that are most important to you. Write a letter or make a call to someone who hasn't heard from you in a long time. Guard against getting over-involved in superficial and time-consuming activities. Don't neglect the things and people who really matter. Stepping stones is reassurance, sustainment, certainty, endurance, stability, anchorage, lastingness, survival, continuity, indestructibility, spiritual integrity, and service and hope. Okay, so something is being rebuilt basically, or we're looking at things that have been kind of hanging around for a long time, and we're reevaluating if they should still stand. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the 12 rising signs. So we're going to look first. We're going to work first with Aries, and we're going to talk about where Pluto is moving into now. We'll go sign by sign. And so as always, I'm a Western astrologer. This is your whole sign predictions for this transit. All right. So for my Aries and my Aries risings, for you guys, you've got Pluto going into your 11th house. Okay. So it's sextiling your sign, sun, moon, or rising, especially if you're an early degree, it's sextiling. So that can be a friendlier aspect for you than where it has been in Capricorn. Essentially in the 11th house, the effects that you're going to see is that there's going to be powerful changes going on in your social circle. Your goals are going to be changing in some way, and you're going to be focusing on networks that foster innovation. I recommend for you guys to join or form groups with futuristic goals, or to use social media to further some of your connection to other people. Yes, Pluto can bring crisis. So there can be major changes going on revolving around your goals, revolving around your friends, revolving around what networks you belong to. Pluto also has connections to your 8th house and change. So it can mean that there is some significant shift going on where the change is really revolving around your goals. And it can be your financial goals, your goals when it comes to friendships, what have you. These are the things that you're going to be focusing on with this transit. Okay? Good luck, Aries. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. You guys will be experiencing Pluto's transit through the sign of Aquarius in your natal 10th house. If you're an early degree Taurus, sun, moon, or rising, 0 to 3 degrees, you're under a Pluto transit for the next year. Pluto will be squaring you, so it's definitely a period of, how you're working under pressure. And Pluto's going into your 10th house, so this is about your career and your public image. So this has a major lasting effect when it comes to your career. Likely there is some major career transformation that's going on. It can mean that you're ending a job, you're starting something new. It can mean that you're moving more into tech or humanitarian type of roles. It can mean that there was some significant shift in regards to your public relationships, your committed relationships, as Pluto also rules your 7th house. I'm anticipating for you guys that this is about really kind of like moving into a time in your career where you're realizing that power can come from community and connection. And some of you guys might be, leveraging technology for career advancement. You might be considering public service or leadership of some kind. That can be happening as well. Just know with Pluto in your 10th house, it's definitely a time where you're more so in the spotlight. You're going to get some kind of recognition in some way. Good or bad, that's up to you. But it's definitely a time where there is some profound shift that's kind of happening within your professional sphere. All right. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. You guys will be experiencing Pluto's transit in Aquarius, and this will be taking place in your natal 9th house. For you guys, obviously, Aquarius is a fellow sister air sign. So if you're an early degree Gemini, this is a friendly transit for you, as you'll be experiencing trines from your 1st to your 9th house. Now, Pluto in the 9th house is about obviously profound change and transformation revolving around your beliefs, your philosophy, maybe education or travel. I think that this is going to expand your worldview, possibly through digital means or community education initiatives. It may also be about how, you go on a trip and it changes your perspective. You end up, completing a program. It shifts everything that you thought you knew about life. Maybe you meet a very important or powerful kind of mentor or teacher. Regardless, Pluto is connected to your 6th house of health, habits, and routine. So a lot of you guys are going to be learning about these topics. You're going to be learning about service. You're going to be learning about health. You're going to be learning about healing. And this can also be a really potent transit for shifting something about your beliefs. And obviously the 9th house can also be connected to foreign travel, can be connected to law, legality, publishing. So these can all be really important topics for you over the next 20 years. I guess for you guys, I would just say, engage with international communities online, consider studying, consider teaching, traveling. All of these things are going to bring you some positive things from Pluto. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Pluto's transit through Aquarius in your natal 8th house. Okay, so the 8th house is a place where Pluto generally does pretty well. So I'm not too worried about this transit for you guys, but this is about major change and transformation of resources. So the effects that this transit has is obviously like a deep psychological transformation, changes in joint resources, finances, anything shared. It can also be changes revolving around debt or even like connections to inheritances. Okay, so Pluto deals with your 5th house, so it can be about your own personal spending. It could be about gambling. It could be about your hobbies and what it's costing you. It could be psychological things connected to dating or connected to children, right? Pluto in the 8th. And I really feel like with this transit, some of you guys might benefit like exploring therapy or spiritual practices, but be very cautious with joint financial ventures, borrowing money, lending money, sharing money, money that you have invested with another person. I think things can get a little complicated or a little complex here. Money and romantic partners, money and children, right? Money and gambling. All of that kind of connection with Pluto and the 5th house definitely kind of is emphasized here. With early degree Cancer risings too, Pluto in the 8th, quincunx the ascendant, it can mean that there are some profound changes kind of happening and it's bringing out some emotions in you and you're learning how to deal with your emotions in a different way. Okay. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You guys are experiencing Pluto's transit through Aquarius in your natal 7th house. Obviously, this is a radical change when it comes to relationships and partnerships. That's the theme. 7th house can be your clients, your marketplace, your therapist, your astrologer, your marital partner, your committed one-on-one relationships. So Pluto going through here obviously means that, there are major shifts regarding how you relate to your partners. And it's really emphasizing like where they're going through some significant changes. It can emphasize, equality and intellectual connections in relationships. Pluto is connected to the 4th house of home. So it can mean that like there is like issues within family relationships that you're addressing. There's issues involving, the home that's like, putting the pressure maybe on a relationship, a home or a living situation, a home dynamic, a family dynamic. And it's really encouraging you, I think, in a very big way to like seek relationships that support mutual growth and innovation. For some of you guys with Pluto going into Aquarius, you know, you've already seen where it's created some really radical changes in your relationships already. Could be a romantic relationship, could be friendships, because it's an Aquarius. And with Mars getting ready to go retrograde, opposing this, it almost makes me feel like a lot of Leo risings are really prioritizing their own needs, their own goals, where they're going, and they're like, other people's problems are their problems. I can't make it my problem. I can't be taking care of other people. I got to prioritize me. And you're learning not to like take what other people are kind of going through personally, and you're giving people space. But this can be the transit where if a relationship has already kind of been on the rocks, Pluto going into Aquarius can show you in a very big way whether or not this is something that can work, especially if it involves some kind of home or domestic situation. All right, so we've got Virgo and Virgo rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Pluto's transit through your 6th house in the sign of Aquarius. Like Cancer, this is a sign that in conjuncts or quincunxes you. So Virgo and Virgo rising, you really want to pay attention to your health. Health matters are really important with this aspect. The 6th house is not just health. I mean, it is health and work. It's changes in your daily routines, your health practices, your work environment. I think it's really focusing more on like efficiency and also innovation. Obviously, Pluto deals with the 3rd house of the mind. So this is what you're learning about health. This is how you're learning to communicate differently, you know, how you're communicating when it comes to your day-to-day routine. And it might be about using new technologies or gadgets or things that you're learning when it comes to your health. And I foresee this being a time where many Virgo risings are going to be adopting new health routines or practices. And I think maybe you'll be engaging in like health group activities, fitness classes, new spas or gyms, especially locally. And you're going to be recognizing and realizing the importance of physical activity and organization and care and the impact that that has on your mental health. And so I think that that's going to be like really positive for you guys in like navigating things. And yes, sometimes, you know, Pluto transits can start with a crisis. So for some Virgos, it's like, okay, there is a health crisis going on, and there is a job crisis going on, or, you know, there is a crisis going on with a pet. Obviously, we don't want to hear these things, but it can happen. And it really opens us up and makes us realize like, okay, we need to kind of seek answers. We need to find a way to be able to kind of solve this. Like, what can we find, and how is it encouraging you to find better mind and body balance, and like learn how to communicate some of these things better with other people, so you can kind of work through that and you can find a solution. All right, so we've got Libra and Libra rising. You guys are experiencing Pluto's transit through your natal 5th house in Aquarius. And for Libras and Libra risings, this is a sign that's going to be trining you. So if you're an early degree Libra, Libra rising, this is a more positive transit for you, as Pluto trine your ascendant does bring the opportunity for a radical change and transformation, especially to yourself or your appearance. Pluto in your 5th house. So this is a transit that really deals with like, you know, major changes revolving around your approach to creativity, to dating, to love, you know, anything revolving around your hobbies or your children. So Pluto being in this house, like you can become really obsessed and fixated with something. Like there can be a new hobby. There can be a radical change that's going on with a child or involving children. There can also be a major change that's going on in regards to matters of the heart or dating. Now, Pluto rules your 2nd house of investment or, you know, personal resources, income, security. So I feel like for some of you guys, this is about like exploring new hobbies. Be careful how much money you're spending on some of these hobbies. Be mindful of how much money you're spending on romantic kind of ventures or, you know, anything involving children. There can be some child expenses here too. But I think that this is about also like finding new ways to update, having fun, finding new ways to kind of express yourself. Maybe it's going to be through technology. Maybe it's going to be through community events. But this is going to be about finding a new way to kind of create and be like super authentic and like showing some kind of talent that you have to the world, and prioritizing happiness, joy, and also self-care, as Pluto is connected to your 2nd house. All right, so we have got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. Obviously, this is very important for you, Scorpio, as you're ruled by Pluto. Pluto is now back in your 4th house of home, family, and living situation. So, you know, you've already seen some of the effects of this. It could mean that there has been some radical changes happening in your family dynamics, maybe in your living situation. Perhaps with one of your parents or one of your siblings. Maybe you have been embracing a totally different lifestyle, living somewhere new. Maybe you've been renovating a home. There could have been some kind of crisis involving like family or parents. If not, then it's about you recognizing and realizing that there's some big emotional shifts kind of happening for you that's going to be impacting where and how you're living. Obviously, this opposition to Mars has been colorful because it's kind of saying that a lot of the changes emotionally are on the home front are going to be bringing up changes also at work and professionally as well. I encourage you to open your home to new ideas, be open to where you could live, how you could live, what your home situation is going to look like. I think that this is also about maybe making some home improvements. Maybe it's going to be about moving into something more modern or kind of tech savvy. This could also be about you, consciously making some big changes and kind of overhauling, not just something in your home, but something emotionally in your heart space. And it can be about kind of healing issues revolving around your lineage, your home, your family, where you come from, to kind of help better prepare where you're going to be going, right? Good luck, Scorpio. We've got Sag and Sag rising. Sag, you'll be experiencing Pluto transiting Aquarius in your natal 3rd house. And this is friendly for you. It does sextile your sign. So it does really open the door to communicating, learning, sharing in a much more kind of profound way. And the 3rd house is about communication. It's about vehicles. It's about siblings. It's about your, your travel. So getting around town, vehicles, but also the mind. So with Pluto in your 3rd house, there's going to be this revolution in the way of the way that you're thinking and the way that you're communicating with people, possibly through digital or unconventional means. Maybe you are, starting a new website. Maybe you are starting a new social media. There is this shift revolving around how you communicate and connect with people. What's interesting is Pluto rules the 12th house. So you want to be mindful because the 12th house ruler is like where the self-undoing comes out to play. So it can mean that you're more mindful or cautious of how you're communicating, what you're saying, letting fear run the show, speaking things into existence. You're recognizing that your words are very powerful and you have to wield them responsibly. There can be some unexpected and unforeseen changes going on, maybe with, siblings, also with travel and transportation. But I feel like a really powerful thing for you guys to do is going to have mantras and things that you're writing down regularly that are going to be like empowerment phrases and things that you're reminding yourself of. So that way you're kind of able to kind of keep the mind on board and not allow yourself to be thinking or talking about things that are kind of correlating or relating to fear. This is about empowerment with Pluto in the 3rd house, empowering the mind. So I would really encourage you to maybe work with new, technology, maybe getting involved in local community stuff. Maybe you're learning some form of divination. Maybe you're learning about meditation. These could be things that can kind of help you balance out Pluto in the 3rd house. And we've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Pluto's transit in Aquarius in your natal 2nd house. This deals with obviously values, finances, personal possessions. So this is radical change and transformation when it comes to your spending and also, your purchasing power. Now, the 2nd house is going to be, I think with this transit, a complete transformation of, how you're approaching money, like how, you spend it, how you earn money. It can also be changes in your values. It can be possibly through, new earning methods or shared resources with Pluto and Aquarius. Pluto is also connected to your 11th house of goals and friends. So there can be powerful connections, which could bring you more money or more resources. It could also mean that you're really kind of supercharging some of your goals when it comes to resources. So you're getting serious about a financial situation. I do think that this might indicate that some of you guys are investing in technology or community projects, and that there's definitely going to be some major reevaluation of your resources over the next 20 years. But this can be a transit where there's lots of ups and downs in finances, and then you get to the end of it, and then you end up kind of realizing how strong and resilient you are, and maybe you've built something that can be very, very valuable by the end of that transit. But there's definitely endings and beginnings. So I would say you really want to get clear with what your goals are when it comes to your finances as Pluto's going into your 2nd house. All right, so we've got Aquarius, who will be experiencing Pluto in their sign, and you guys probably need a whole 3-hour video for this, honestly. But if you're like 0 to 3 degrees or so, you're going to be under a Pluto transit for the next year. So those are going to be the degrees that are going to get hit the hardest. Obviously, Pluto is about major change, right? It's about endings and beginnings, and that there is like this major purge that happens before you kind of have this breakthrough. So Pluto in your first house, I see as like a complete transformation of self. And this can be how you view yourself, how you present yourself to the world, how you dress, what your hair looks like. But it can also be about personal empowerment. It can be about feeling more authentic, redefining who you are. And Pluto is connected to your 10th house of career and reputation. So it almost seems like you're redefining not just who you are, but who you are out in the world. And maybe there is this side of you that's like breaking free of like what you've always done for work or how you've always been known, and you're embracing like a newer or like more authentic version of yourself. This does come with obviously ebbs and flows, right? It's a long transit. So get yourself a Capricorn rising who can kind of tell you what happens, and that there's like lots of periods where you're like, okay, this isn't working, and now we're gonna rework this. And then there's periods where you're also kind of feeling like you're kind of coming back from the ashes, and there's some newer version of you that's emerging that's like stronger and much more powerful. So remember, so much of this is about empowering yourself and allowing yourself to feel like you can change and that you can break away from how you have always been known. I think that's what a lot of this is going to be about with Pluto in your first house. And we've got Pisces and Pisces rising. So you guys are going to be experiencing Pluto's transit through Aquarius in your natal 12th house. All right, so for you guys, obviously the 12th house is kind of hidden. It's kind of behind the scenes. It's subconscious. But this is a house that's also about endings, okay? So when you have Pluto transit the 12th house, you do a lot of deep inner work. It's private. You need privacy. You're releasing old subconscious patterns throughout this transit. Many people I know who have had this transit have like a major spiritual awakening, or they find that they have really significant dreams or like visions and things that really change their perspective about life. Pluto for you is connected to the 9th house of beliefs, philosophy, and also higher education. So for some of you guys, it can mean that you're going back to school, you're studying, you're traveling. For others, it means that you're getting more serious about your spiritual work, and that you're kind of doing more research, you're learning more about meditation or maybe like past lives. Something that is going to be also helping you not just heal, but have some kind of connection to the collective. Like something about your healing or what you learn about healing may actually influence the collective because it's in Aquarius. So definitely I would say is like a tip, engaging in meditation or dream work, that can be significant. I also feel like some of you guys might be feeling like you're preparing for a significant life transition because Pluto's in the 12th. So it might mean that you're going through it behind the scenes. Nobody really knows that it's coming, but it's coming. And it's like you learning new techniques or ways of being able to kind of prepare and hold some kind of spiritual practice or faith to help you through that transitionary time. So hopefully that's helpful for you guys. So we'll talk lots more about Pluto and Aquarius. Obviously, we have plenty of time, the next 20 plus years to talk about it, but we'll be talking about it a lot the next couple of months because of the Mars retrograde. But I'd love to hear from you guys about the Pluto transit, what you experienced so far in this last year, and what do you think is going to be happening for you with this next ingress. I'd love to hear your feedback, so don't forget to leave me a comment. You guys can catch me here on Friday. We're going to be doing live tarot readings, so make sure you check the community tab there. You'll see the link that's going to be posted if you guys would like to get a tarot reading. We are here every Friday, alternating between tarot and astrology. And if you guys want to learn more about me and my work, check out the links below. You can see my website at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. I have one-on-one sessions that I do with clients. I have gift certificates that I'm also selling for the holidays if you want to gift a reading. And I teach astrology, so you guys can check out my courses and also my astro calendars that I have for 2025 if you are looking for something to kind of help navigate you for this next year. With that being said, I'm wishing you guys all a really great week ahead. I almost said month, a week ahead. And I will catch you guys all back here on Tuesday. Take care.